Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Doug Johnson, and this is The Business of Life. During each show, we highlight a local resident who is willing to share their strategies for success. Today's guest is Bob Jones. He is an entrepreneur, business owner, very civic-minded resident, and a car collector. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to my new friend, Bob Jones. Bob,
Hi,
welcome
Doug.
to the show,
Okay.
and thanks so much for being here today.
Nice having you here, Doug.
Thank you. Bob, years ago, you started an interior design firm. How did that come about, and why here in Akron?
Why in Akron is because I was born and raised here. Went to St. Vincent's High School. Graduated from there. But I didn't start an interior design firm. I started an office furniture company. I'm not a designer.
Mm-hmm.
So we started out selling office furniture, and that gravitated it into my son coming into the business and other people joining our company that were designers. I saw the value in design. Could expand our office furniture attempt. So some years later we got more involved in design than we were in just selling office furniture.
So with the design business, when you were in the office furniture business, you were down near the old O'Neill store.
Right.
And then as you were becoming more involved in the interior design, there was something that happened there that caused you to look for a new building.
Yeah, the city wanted to build their baseball stadium down there, which does exist today.
Okay.
But the mayor asked to borrow my office,
Mm-hmm.
and he invited all the people involved in the neighborhood to come in, and he explained in very frank terms, he says, we're going to build a stadium here. You guys are going to have to move. Couldn't be any better than that.
So not much of a choice.
No, and we realized that in a hurry.
Uh-huh.
It made it easier.
So when you were looking for a building, and obviously you didn't have a very long period of time to do that, you found this building.
Yeah,
And today it's absolutely gorgeous.
but it was a piece of trash when we took it over. It was the old Tasty Bread Bakery.
Okay.
But for 25 years, it had been just an office for some company, I don't even know who. So I contacted Pappas Realty. They had a sign on the building. And after some negotiation, we were able to make a deal. So we did, and what really interrupted it was we had an engineer come down here and he says, be $80,000 to support. I said, I'm not prepared for that. So Pappas and I worked it out and made it happen.
Well, and as we talked last week, you said that the building was in quite different shape than what it's in today.
I was in horrible shape. You couldn't hardly walk through this lower level here. Company, Century Fence, I think was the name of it. They put up cyclone fencing, and their truck would pull in over there, and they'd throw off the day's work, old rolled up fence with concrete legs on it. And this place was just full of that stuff. And I thought, when I bought the building, I thought, boy, I'm in trouble. I had to clean all that up. But you know, those guys brooms swept this place clean. They took all their junk out of here.
Wow.
Yeah, I really give them credit. They're still in business. They're over behind Pepsi-Cola over there.
Gee.
So they were a good outfit.
Mm-hmm. So, but when you moved in, it still didn't look like this.
No, we put over 500 gallons of white paint down here. We pressure washed everything. When we got to the ceiling here, I said, we're not going to paint that because it looks nice, just bare wood. So that's what we did. We let that go. We put white paint everywhere else, as you can see. And then the other improvements came through the years.
Mm-hmm.
We improved one thing and then improved another. And the electrical work was you'd look down through, you'd see these cords hanging down, bare wires. And I used to go home and I'd think, oh, what am I going to do about that? But I had a guy, Bill Scheidler, who's since passed away. He was an expert. So he cleaned all that up with the help of my brother, Tom Jones. So there.
Well, I have to say, the first time I came into the building, I just looked around and looked up, and it is absolutely phenomenal what you've done through the years. And it really is a testament to building preservation.
Yeah. Well, and we've had the preservation people down here on the tour, and they were, early on, they were very impressed. They liked the basement better than upstairs.
There's a reason for that. We'll get to that later. When I came in, of course, I came in upstairs, and I just was so impressed and so grateful that you saw the advantage of keeping an older building, because nowadays it seems that, just tear it down and get rid of it and build something new.
Financially, I didn't have much choice. I couldn't afford to just build a new building.
Well, I'm happy you couldn't afford to do it.
Today I am too.
Yeah.
Because it's been a real gift for us.
It really is a great place.
My son Eric, who's a designer, and his staff have been responsible for a lot of the upgrades.
Well, so the where they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
That's what they tell me.
Right. So, well, good for both you and Eric. It really is quite an achievement.
Thank you.
You mentioned preservation, and mentioned that you have worked with, at times, the Preservation Organization for Akron, and that's really a good thing for you to be involved with, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, they're good people. They came down here. They were quite impressed with what we had to start with.
Bob, why is it so important for you to be involved with preservation and with groups like that, with civic groups?
Well, because that's sort of what we do. We help people redo their office space or their total space. And so we're deeply involved in that, in upgrading their facilities. And we have to know what we're talking about.
Right. In addition to everything that you've done with Eric, as far as the design business is concerned, there is kind of a secret in your basement.
Yeah, that's
Would you be willing to tell us about that secret?
Well, we're in it right now. Bob Dyer from the Beacon Journal did the best job of that some years ago.
Okay.
He came down here and he wrote a letter about the secret on Broadway, and he explained the whole thing, more detail than I wanted anybody to know. So I started getting phone calls, people wanting to come down and visit. So I called Bob. I said, okay, Bob, you owe me one. I said, I'm going to get even with you for that. And he laughed. And so come December, Eric came to me and said, hey, Dad, I got some people would like to see what's downstairs. I said, okay, give me a day or two. So I called Bob. I said, hey, we're going to have Bob Dyer Day. And here's the date. It was December. I said, so I'm going to invite some people down. So we had like 450 people show up that evening.
Oh my gosh.
And then later on, one of our bigger events, we had over 900 people. 4 of them were the local mayors. So they came down to see it. And they weren't disappointed.
Well, I certainly was not disappointed when I came down here either. But you haven't told us what the secret is.
The secret is his car collection.
Ah.
Well, the car collection and the memorabilia collection. A lot of people like the memorabilia as well or better than the cars.
Yeah, you have, what, about 75 or 80 cars?
About 80, yeah.
And what was the first, and I have to say they're absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
What was your first car?
Well, we don't want to talk about that. It was the ugliest car I ever owned. And it's not down here. I had a 42 Plymouth 4-door sedan, and it was not a nice car. So with that, I was able to sell that and get into another car. and I just keep growing them up. And as the boys grew up and didn't cost me as much money as they used to, and then the business started taking off. Every time I get a little extra money, I'd buy a car, and I always paid for my cars. I didn't finance them. So all these cars wound up here, paid for.
Do you have a favorite?
I'd have to tell you this. It's a 34 Ford Roadster. It's parked over there somewhere.
And what makes that your favorite?
Well, it's just a really nice car. It's a friend of mine was in here not long ago, and he looked at it and he said, "Bob, there's not a design flaw in that car." And I said, "I agree with you." And it's just a beautiful car, very well accepted in the car collection field.
Mm-hmm. Do you have other cars that you really like?
Oh, all of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
Now, when you mentioned, you mentioned the other day that when you go to a car show, you don't necessarily have a list of the cars that you think you would like to buy.
No, I don't really have a printed list, but I have a feeling for what I'd like to have. And it's not, you go to a car auction, and if they've got 800 cars there, it's not hard to pick out one that you can afford and that you like. So that's what I usually do. I go there, and if I see something I like, I check it out, or I have some of my friends go through it and check it out, and they tell me, "Bob, that's a pretty good car," or "Be careful." And then I get up there and I bid on them.
So what are the criteria that you look for in a car?
Well, the quality of it.
Quality, okay.
Yeah, and the price. You know.
And does the design figure in at all?
Well, the design is already there. I mean, whoever designs the car they've done a good job. Yeah.
What do you think of the cars today as opposed to some of the older cars?
Well, it's hard to even compare them because the cars today are just so uneventful, so plain. But the cars from before had their own individual personality. The cars today are probably better mechanically and better built because of the technology. But the cars themselves, most people that like cars would agree the older cars are more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that looking through your collection here, it's such a diverse collection.
Mm-hmm.
You have a Model T, and you have your 1934 Ford, and there's a Continental.
Yeah, it didn't start out. I started out buying a lot of old Fords.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a bunch of Fords sitting back there that are all from the 30s. And after I got quite a few of those, I got a little boring. I had the same people come down year after year. They'd see the same cars. So I decided to diversify, and I have a Alpha car sitting over there. That's one that goes in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of different cars for that reason, because people could now see something different then.
Well, and kind of going back to the Civic ties, a lot of your cars have been used at Stan Hewitt and in local parades.
Yeah, I've probably taken more cars to Stan Hewitt than any other one person. Because going back years ago when I didn't have any to take, I just went there and looked. And then I'd get one and I'd take it. And eventually they came to me and they said, "Hey, Bob, would you bring something to Stan Hewitt?" I said, "I always do." They said, "Well, would you bring more than..." I said, "Well, how many do you want?" Well, they sent a guy over here, and he said, sort of sheepishly, he said 17. And I said, "I probably can do that." So we sent 21 vehicles over.
Oh my gosh.
So we took a lot of them over the Saturday night before, and it rained. But you know, they got wet before, and we just, the next day at about 11 o'clock, the sun was out, it was beautiful. And we toweled them. I've got a lot of people here that help me, and they're really good. So we toweled them all down, and it was a beautiful day then. So that's the largest amount I've taken at one time, is 21.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was this big green monster over here that belongs to Art Arfons. Of course, he's gone now, with his son Tim. That's not my car, it's here on display.
Okay. Now, so as a collector of cars, I see all the time that cars are trucked to shows and that kind of thing, but you're a believer in driving the cars.
Yeah, I like to drive them as often as I can. But that particular time we had a couple of them trucked over because I've got two milk trucks over there. Used to be used for milk delivery. And they're a little uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
So we put them on a trailer and took them over. Same way with the Green Monster that was hard R funds. We put that on a flatbed and took it over there.
Mm-hmm.
You can't drive that on the street.
Yeah, yeah. Tell our audience, if you would, Bob, please, about all the memorabilia you have here.
Well, we've got quite a bit of it, and a lot of people really like it. I get started out with something that I like, or it goes back to my history, like the bakery signs. You know, I have a lot of different bakery signs here, but you find one and then you see another one. Pretty soon you got a collection of them. So
Nice. The collection, the memorabilia too, seems to be quite diverse. From signs, and I noticed you had small model cars
Right.
and posters, and there's a picture I noticed of you with Jay Leno.
Hey, Leno, yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, they were having a fundraiser for one of the hospitals, and the party was involved in doing that test. He called me and said, "Hey, Bob," he says, "could we bring Jay down to see your collection? He's a big car guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's really big." I said, "Oh, I'd love to have him." He says, then he called me back. He said, "Would you mind picking him up at the airport?" I said, "Would I mind? I'd love to." So we went out and took one of the old cars and picked him up at one of the private airports out there and brought him down here. And he was unusual, which isn't easy to understand. A lot of people come down here and look through for a half hour and they're done. He came down here, he wanted to see every car, and he knew about every car. And when he left here, he had seen every one of them.
Nice.
Yeah.
What a memory.
Oh, yeah. He's great. And he's just a fine person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he really is.
I think many of the car collectors that I've met anyway have been fine people.
Yeah, there's a nice group of. That's why I like to get the young people down here. Hopefully, get them involved. It's just a good hobby.
Well, you mentioned the other day that you do have young people come down.
Yeah.
And what do you tell them about the cars? I'm sure many of them have never seen cars like this before.
Well, many of them have not. They'll say, "Oh, that's a nice car there." I said, "Yeah, you know how I bought that car? By not smoking and not drinking." And I said, if you do the math on smoking, if you smoked a carton of cigarettes a week, I said, multiply that out the current rate, or booze, same way. I said, it doesn't take long to pay for something you want, whether it's an old car or what.
Well, I think that's a great thing that you are doing, because certainly, not to knock today's youth, but sometimes
They've got a lot of issues.
Yeah.
We had issues when I was growing up too, but we weren't faced with the problems that the youngsters are faced with today.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. Bob, I kind of like to tie together all of your experiences from starting the company to growing the company, your civic involvement, the car collection. And you and I talked about some strategies that you had for success. And you told me the first three were honesty, kindness, and loyalty.
Mm.
And then you threw in two additional ones that were spirituality and common sense.
Right.
Can you talk about those a little bit?
Well, they're sort of self-explanatory, but yeah, they mean a lot to me. I mean, take any one of them and figure it out. Honesty is so basic. You know, we all need that no matter what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And truthfulness is, you know, if you lie to people, and I've seen it in my industry, people would lie to get an order, and then later on they pay for it. So, and the other ones are, they just all fit together real good. Spirituality is, that's part of life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if people are void in that area, they don't have a good life to support
Right. I think one of the things too, and particularly in the climate that we're in today, is kindness.
Yeah.
And it seems that that doesn't exist as much as it used to.
Maybe not as much, but it still does exist. I mean, you know as well as I do, if someone's kind to you, that means a lot. And
It
it's,
does.
like you say, maybe in today's environment even more than it used to. Because you don't forget somebody and their kindness. And sometimes that kindness comes when you need it the most. So you try to pass those things on. And I have done that. I've had people come back and write me letters and thank for me. The ones that worked here and have moved on. So.
Well, I think the third is loyalty.
Yeah.
And that's also so important.
Well, it really is in every walk of life. Loyalty is important. I just lost my wife a year ago, and we were married a long time. But the loyalty was important, and all the kindness and everything was. Honesty.
Mm-hmm. Could you talk just briefly again about the spirituality? Because I think, again, that's something that seems to be lacking in some quarters today.
Well, it probably is, and it really shouldn't be in anybody's life, because without that aspect of beliefs, you're in trouble. So some people just go ahead without any spiritual life at all, and it just shows in the way they act and the way they treat their business and the way they treat people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so important whether you're in business or what you are. If you're a parent or a relative or whatever, you need to have a spiritual background, something to support you in what you do. And that doesn't always come through in the right way. I mean, I'm not saying we're all saints by any means. And I haven't been.
Bob, you mean you're not?
No, I never have been. But it's a good goal to strive for. And I've got 3 boys, and I've tried to expand that to them, and we've had some success,
Well, hopefully so.
We keep working on it.
One of my favorite of your strategies, Bob, is common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I deal with in my business. And I'd like to hear your take on it.
Well, common sense is so understanding. I mean, a lot of people go through life without common sense, and they're trying to solve all their issues themselves. And they just stop and think for a minute. What makes sense? What's common sense? How do I treat you? I lock the door when I see you coming? Not yet, I don't.
You might down the road.
No, I never will. I've always said, and I said it just recently, I can walk down the street, never have to cross the street if anybody coming toward me because of any offense I've done to them. And I'm not bragging about that. That's just something I hope most people do, but not all of us. But common sense is just treat people the way you want to be treated. That's pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. And obviously it does make sense.
Yeah.
Bob, if you had to choose maybe a highlight of your life or your accomplishment that you're most proud of, what do you think that would be?
That's a pretty tough one because I've had so many opportunities to be involved in life. But I think one of the basic issues would be, whatever you do, you should do it with some kind of a spiritual background, because that comes first. And if you do that in the right way, then you learn the respect of other people, and you give them respect. So that would be my anchor, I would say. Not just in business, but in life in general.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bob, I have so enjoyed talking with you today.
Well, me
I'm
too.
sure our audience will enjoy it. Would you mind perhaps if we took our audience on a little tour of the secret?
No, you're welcome to do that.
Well, thank you so much.
We open this up regularly to groups of people.
Well, we certainly appreciate it and appreciate the time that you've been able to take with us today.
Okay.
And
Well, I'm glad to do it with you.
well, I certainly appreciate it and wish you all the best down the road here.
Thank you. I've had all the best so far. I really have.